My guest practiced architecture for 18 years, and he will tell you at the end of those 18 years, he realized how little he actually knew about his own industry.
When I actually passed out from the college, started practicing, doing residential architecture, over a period of time, what I felt is the last 18 years, there was so much which I was not aware about. It's not about learning it.
Not the design of it, the material, the execution, the 5,700 categories no college ever puts in front of you.
We got 197 families and 5,700 categories to talk about. When I say categories, so when you talk about flooring, wooden flooring is a category, stone flooring is a category,
Okay.
and maybe terrazzo flooring is a category. The industry size is huge.
So, he set out to do the thing most people would call impossible, to organize one of largest and most unorganized industries in the country, physically and digitally, and give the time back to the people who design.
Immediate access to that flexibility of that material or strength of that material is where we never had information about. Good design requires good material.
This is the story behind Knowledge Center and the man behind it, Ankur Jain.
Having a cab service, staying over a hotel, next day morning going to the selection criteria. I took 48 hours to decide a Kajaria type.
Excited?
Yeah,
I hope.
excited.
How much nervous are you?
Pretty nervous.
Is this first time
Yeah, first time.
speaking
Yeah,
and in public that way?
first time.
All right. We'll be very nice to you. But you see, I have a set of paper and questions, and you don't get to see what I have. But everything's based on what we discuss. We did a discovery call. We figured out who you are, and then what we do is we jump into the human side of it. And something that shook me, I had a 10-minute call with Ankur, and he told me something very interesting. What do you see? A nail, a screw, right? Right? It's a commodity. It's a 2 rupee part. But what Ankur told me while we were hanging up is that this 2 rupee part, which we consider as a commodity, somebody spent about 40 years, 50 years, to perfecting that thread. Is that right?
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think in this race, we've forgotten the human side of material. Yeah. The amount of time somebody spends into perfecting material, looking at our environmental changes and developing something new. We only focus on material. We've forgotten the human side of it. So let's start from there. Let's start from why do we not look at the human side, and or maybe it's the branding issue that nobody is able to brand it.
So basically, when we see any material, any product, we never understand that उस product को develop करने में एक 100-200 लोगों की manpower लगती है in a manufacturing setup, and then they come out with an answer which is maybe available in the market just in a form of कील चाहिए या screw चाहिए. एक manufacturer ने एक brand build किया over the last 40 periods of his life, and finally वो एक screw बन जाता है और उसकी importance equally बाकी इंडस्ट्री के स्टेक होल्डर्स के साथ है. बट यस, बिकॉज हमारे लिए बहुत सारी चीज़ एक्सपीरियंशियल नहीं है या नोन नहीं है, तो वो सिर्फ एक आई वुड से गवर्नमेंट के कंप्लाइंसेस में एक ब्रांड रह जाता है, बट वो इसकी एग्जिस्टेंस एज अ ब्रांड नहीं होती. सो यस, देयर इज अ इमोशन टू एवरी प्रोडक्ट दैट एग्जिस्ट, एंड यू आर perfectly right about the screw.
How can we bring that emotion back? As a designer, as an architect, all of us want to use the best of material or whatever our budget is. How can we focus on that emotion?
I'll give you an alternate answer to this. I saw a showroom in Emporium Mall in which there was a designer, और उसने अपने screws, अपने scissor, maybe the tools that he used, created a curtain wall out of it. So
Okay.
he made sure that everything that existed, वो उसके space में is coming from the nostalgia that he's carrying from the older times. Maybe the screwing machine, maybe the stitching machine, all those parts were turned into a curtain.
Wow.
So when we start giving importance to a minute product, yes, we can find out a solution to that.
Right. And something also that struck me since we last spoke uh, is that it took you 18 years, and then even then you felt कि यार ये industry में चल क्या रहा है and what is happening. I mean, and we spoke about how doctors practice during their MBBS degree, they get their degree, and then they get to uh, handle cases directly. Maybe surgeries, or at some level they can treat the patients. They have some authority over it. Similarly to lawyers, they complete their degree, they practice in moot courts, and then they are able to go to courts and they know how to do it. But for an architect or a designer, it's a constant learning they have to go through and then figure out after getting graduated कि अब क्या, अच्छा अब क्या, what's next. So it was very incredible that you mentioned, and since then I've been thinking that it's an ongoing journey. But what made you figure out?
So as a professional, if you see now, we are a degree holder. When we say professional degree holder, that it means ki you are liable to do everything possible. As a doctor, as a lawyer, as an architect, we call ourselves as professional. And that gives you the luxury of day one starting from the experience background, not like a intern or a fresher background.
Yeah.
So while saying this, when I actually passed out from the college, started practicing, doing residential architecture, over a period of time, what I felt is in last 18 years, there was so much which I was not aware about. It's not about learning it,
Was
but
there
not
a knowledge gap
yeah.
between what we studied and what you
So,
were experiencing?
so
Or
as design schools, we get to experience how to design our spaces in a multi ways. But coming down to the execution side of it, there is a gap. That gap is all about knowing material, knowing other part of the industry. So those 18 years, I would say that maybe I was aware about only 500 typologies, but the industry existed with much larger possibilities.
right, right. So what was your way? What if an audience here, you want to put a dot on a map that this is a maybe a nicer way to explore, I don't know, material or how it functions.
So when we would like to understand the design industry, it's more like design, material, and execution. I think most of them are engineers and architects. We have building material classes in our uh, seminars or theses in our colleges. We do have things in our colleges, but practically we don't give priority to them. So we are more like on an AutoCAD trying to do design things and stuff like that, but missing on the other part of it. But I think it is because of the reason that industry size is huge and you can't learn everything in those 5 years. And that is the reason people take time to understand. And again, I would come down to the conclusion that we don't have something like a aggregated platform which helps in making that things learn also. So I think
Yeah,
availability is the problem, not like
right,
the college or the practicing period.
right. Let's talk about what knowledge center is. Let's just set up some context. I don't know if everyone's aware of about knowledge center. Can we have raise of hands? Everybody knows mostly. Mostly everybody knows about. Okay, so let's talk about the struggles behind knowledge center, because I know that you had this idea. It's very complex idea to explain when you go to brands or stakeholders, or if you want to raise funds. Very complex. It took us a while to understand it, and likewise when you went to people, they were not maybe understanding the vision or the idea, and you had multiple failures. I mean denials,
Yeah.
and I would say one negative thought leads to another. One after, it's a ripple effect of negativity. But what made you stay? What was the moment when you said you already knew that this is going to work? And I think you spent maybe around 2 years or 3 years
Yeah.
at the idea stage. What was the moment when you kicked it off कि ये करना ही है अब तो बस.
So actually, there was a moment in my life where I wanted to do maybe hundreds of projects a year, and my day used to start at 8 in the morning, starting traveling, and then trying to conclude my day with all possibilities. During that course of period, the design team could conclude the project, but when it gone down to the execution side of it, I still remember a project in Jaipur where the client offered me the travel, the stay, and stuff, and I was shortlisting a Kajaria tile. And it was like I spent. It was a initial day, so I enjoyed having a cab service, staying over a hotel, next day morning going to the selection criteria, and after few days, I think few months, I realized ki took 48 hours to decide a Kajaria tile, which might be available in nearby.
Absolutely.
So that product was important for that site, but the time to reach out to that product
Yeah.
was the cost to me.
Right.
So that is the
Right.
reason I think
Absolutely.
such kind of thought processes made me continue in the same journey.
A quick, honest one. Many of you are watching these conversations all the way to the end, and that means a lot. Most of you are not subscribed yet. If a story is worth your time, subscribing is the small one thing that helps it reach more people like you. So if you've not, do it now. Then get back to the conversation. And if you are sitting on a story worth telling, you can apply to be on the show at ravneetobroi.com.
Speaking of Jaipur or let's say Rajasthan as a whole, I still hear, architects going to Rajasthan to pick certain kind of stone.
Yeah.
And you're right, you spend so many hours driving and then, figuring out, and then you are staying there. And and a lot is happening while we are doing it in terms of environmental impact, just to pick something. So how does that now, how is it being solved? Well, let's say with through knowledge center, are you bringing everybody to Gurgaon and then maybe to other places?
So if you imagine doing a house for yourself, you will understand that you spend 2.5 years to complete a project, and during that life cycle, there is 750 products which are to be shortlisted for a house.
Average 750.
Average. And out of those 750, we give importance to 150 or 200 odd categories. So my take is, just imagine spending 1 hour of travel time to
Each.
reach one product,
Yeah.
one dealer, one distributor, is the amount of time you spend to understand that लेना क्या है और उसके में भी डिसीजन नहीं हो रहा है लेना क्या है
Right.
और
Right.
now imagine those 250 hours of travel time is how much diesel oblique petrol consumed. So when I was talking about Jaipur, it used to take me 8 hours to reach during that time.
Yeah.
Right now it takes 3.5 hours. Just imagine the time, the the I would say the petrol or diesel
Right.
and the energy that is getting consumed because of reaching out to that product. So in our case, we just help out in understanding the product immediately. So we behave like a blanket of our service. So you decide everything in one zone and then you just conclude it.
So these, how critical do you think is this travel? Is it critical that you have to go and you have to get this booked at this certain place and then they'll maybe transport through train or whatever through a truck? Or is it, or or the product can reach to you at one location?
So right now I was talking about identifying a product,
Okay.
not buying the product.
Okay.
That 250 hours is identifying the product.
Right.
The next 250 hours is
Is the
buying the
choice.
product.
Hmm.
Maybe then the life cycle of a product purchase happens.
Hmm.
Maybe you're talking about making that product start from Morbi or maybe from Jaipur or Kishangarh. So that's a different journey. So what we am saying is ki as family, as architects, as designers, as engineers, you should be able to identify the product. Then maybe you take decision faster.
Right. Right. Take us back to your PG days. How
So-
many people? What does this PG look like? How are you brainstorming?
Yeah. So right before the COVID, my sister insisted on doing me something new. And that something new was been ideated by her only. So I like, when ye kar to lenge, but it's a tricky job.
Hmm.
And we somehow took a PG in sector 46 with 36 rooms. And we almost was staying with 72 people. together.
36 rooms.
36
okay.
rooms.
And 72?
So people were there.
Okay.
So professionals were there, architects, engineers, and we started understanding what do we actually want out of the journey called material library. So initial few months were gone into the journey of understanding that do we really require this? Will people support on this? So while saying this, during the COVID time, we happened to have con calls, video calls with almost few hundreds of people, and everyone was like that it's a much bigger bite, and highly unorganized sector, and which has not yet been even tried by anyone. So yes, with the help of our team, we could reach out to a level.
So if I go to a store who has a collection of tiles and other hardware, how many categories or product this store can handle? Let's say
So to
a shop
understand
in
the,
Gurgaon, let's say, or even a nice showroom.
so you're talking about knowledge center, or
No, in general, in the market.
so
The
we got
currency, yeah.
yeah. So in that case, we got 197 families and 5,700 categories to talk about.
Okay.
So when I say categories, so when you talk about flooring, wooden flooring is a category,
Okay.
stone
Okay.
flooring is a category,
Okay.
and maybe terrazzo flooring is a category.
Hmm.
So the industry size is huge. And while saying this, our Delhi NCR industry is divided into 27 odd marketplaces,
Okay.
and nothing exists in a single marketplace.
Hmm.
So you sometimes travel for stone to Rajouri, maybe
Yeah.
for hardware to Defense Colony and other things.
Right.
And still you don't get those 5,700 categories in Delhi NCR also. They don't exist. I would say maybe 1,000, 1,200 categories are the one which are there in the market. Remaining are dependent
After
on
all this,
state.
yeah.
Then you go to Jaipur, then you go to somewhere else and stuff like that.
You think 700 categories,
Yeah.
5700.
Zero.
How much are you holding at Knowledge Center?
So right now we are working around 485 categories as a subject
Okay.
physically, and digitally we I think would be able to cater to around 1,000, 1,500 some numbers.
Okay.
So numbers will increase because each category needs a knowledge set, and then the brand and the product. Yeah.
But what was the discussion during the PG days? Was there a whiteboard? Was there a vision sheet? I just want to imagine
Yeah.
what was happening.
So we actually created X axis and Y axis, and in which we were talking about industry stakeholders
Okay.
and the problem statement. And that permutation is what? Student, which is learning from the college and wants to be a good professional in future. Early stage studios, which is trying to grab as much work as possible and trying to manage the studio. So such kind of stakeholders we kind of identified. And the problem statement. Problem statement is similar, which is product ka knowledge, which is brand material, which needs to be learned
Yeah.
in the college period also and while execution days also. Then you get down to understanding and procurement side of the product.
Yeah.
So yes, we had that x-axis, y-axis whiteboard, and luckily, I think in last 6.5 years, we have been sticking on the same idea, not even changing a bit, and have been able to reach somewhere. Yeah.
Wow. And you mentioned about 485 categories that you have already physically,
Yeah.
and then in thousands. How much time are you saving if an architect decides to come to a knowledge center or a designer? How much time do you think they would save?
So I would say we
Or and if you can tell us how much diesel, petrol, fuel.
yeah. So we did a case study via AI, and it says that with the help of knowledge center, we might be saving on 20% traffic on road. Just imagine 20% of fuel getting saved in near future.
Wow.
I can't imagine the billions of liters of fuel that is getting saved.
Right.
So not sure of the number, but yes, it says something.
And what is the first reaction when people walk in? Are they able to grab things?
Now they want more of material.
They want more of material because they're so used to coming, and then
They could understand because we are there right now in Arya Mall. So
yeah.
everything is there in one space. Now people have started looking for more categories, more brands in our space. We actually getting good response on that side because there initially it was more like that it would create confusion. Now few days back I remember a designer walking in and she said, "Don't hang along with us. Let us spend 2 hours in this space. Then we'll get back to you." Is the kind of outcome that people are raising. Yeah.
Right. And are you able to set a vision for next 5 years, 10 years? I actually want to know 20 years that how the space is going to look like. Because it has just come up,
Yeah.
maybe a year or two. And then you're already seeing progress. Maybe you started with 50 brands, you moved to 100, and now you already have not brands as a category. Now you've crossing 485. how are you
So in 10
setting up?
years, we believe that we will organize this industry in a manner that we'll be talking around 2.5 lakh brands part of this knowledge center. While saying this, we would be touching around 75 to 100 knowledge centers across India, and which will become an institutional platform for any person to learn, any person from student, studio, or end user
Okay.
to identify any product which they want to secure for their project.
Right. And it sounds very nice. Number of centers across India,
Yeah.
5,600 categories. I mean, it's blowing my mind. But how are you managing it? I want to know the daily struggle. When you reach out to a brand, what do they tell you in return? Are they happy to come? Or let's talk about something which didn't work out initially, and maybe 6 months later it started to work out.
So what happens is when we reach out to a brand now, first thing our industry has understood the e-commerce side of it on the food oblique the this retail side of it. People do understand that there would be some change happening which will help this industry to get organized. But when it comes down to organizing themselves, it's somewhere we start facing the problem because the management wants to do it, but the hierarchy is maybe skilled but do not have sufficient amount of time to organize it.
Yeah.
So we are finding out ways in much simpler manner to get this industry organized, and that is the reason we took time.
But then what's the challenge? I mean, it's just the hierarchy, and they are sold on the vision, but the execution is slow.
So I'll give you example with the
Yeah.
tile industry.
Mhm.
They themselves are not aware about what all products they sell. There's a graphic designer who creates a catalog out of it. That catalogs get dropped down to this dealer. They pick and they select. Nothing is digitized in their execution oblique manufacturing platform.
Okay.
And they produce more than 4,000 SQ. Is
Okay.
where we understood the challenge from the industry that we felt that such a huge factory, maybe doing thousands of crore turnover, is not able to organize themselves within the system.
What I was thinking, like the world has become so digital, and it's very easy to change a digital slide, right? And you're investing so much time, effort, resources into building something which is physical in the current times. Is there a reason behind going physical and not? I mean, digitally, it would just take lesser amount of time and years. Yeah,
So we are digital and physical.
right. But do you think physical still has more leverage?
So when it comes down to selection, if you say designers, oblique people who are doing this industry on a regular basis, the other one will be very comfortable with the digital side of it. But when it comes down to the end user, which is selecting for their own project, maybe the house owner, they would like to touch and feel and understand the product. So this industry requires, I think, both because digitally you can take the entire India and their brands on one portal, and with physical sense you can understand because we are a multi-domain country in terms of desert area you will use something else,
Yeah,
marsh area you will use something else.
right.
So and obviously we did a small case study in which the kind of colors we tend to buy from the commercial industry part
Yeah.
is different in each region. So one color of tile does not work in Kerala,
Okay.
which works maybe in North India or some part
Yeah.
of the country.
Yeah.
So yes,
So I think we are about, I don't know, 70 or 100 people sitting right here, and many come from design and architectural background. What is one thing they should unlearn now based on your experience?
so when it comes to design industry, now I would say there are two ways of doing design. One is with the support of material and with the support of design, like perception of design. So I would say that whenever someone is designing, na, he should understand the kind of. So one guy who was talking about Buljar, so maybe while designing it, he should understand the execution side of it also. Because
Simultaneously.
if you're doing something, let's say you want to create a property on a single structure or some unique design you are looking at, then it requires similar material subset of
Hmm.
knowledge also to
Right.
execute that side of the design. So I
Right.
think We are right now going on a single line statement that we first design, then we identify, then we conclude, or maybe we search for material.
Was it something that took you years to figure out? Maybe when you designed something, you went to the client and then it
So-
started to maybe fall apart.
I'll not say that it took me years to understand this, but I'd never had an alternate answer to this. It's more
Okay.
like
Yeah.
what was available was getting sorted, or what I
Mhm.
designed, I need to identify something which is available in the market.
Right.
So there was not availability of information where I could, as a designer, I could do good sketch, best of design, best of outcome in my mind that I'll do this or that. But when it comes down to the execution side of it, which is raising that structure
Yeah.
or that interior, which requires immediate access to that flexibility of that material or strength of that material, is where we never had information about. So
Mm.
good design requires good material.
Yeah. And just last couple of things I want to know, that we started with a commodity, and in India, design and even architecture, everything's treated like a commodity. कि ये बनाना है. Very few have a taste and preference or certain way, or who acknowledge that what goes behind it. Otherwise, for most, it's pain that they want to get things done and they want to get things done. How can we as designers and architects or people involved can evoke that emotion with the people that we work with, so then they also start to value it?
So actually, I long time back I used to say that we go to Shimla, Goa, and stuff like that, and we don't see amazing buildings. And when we go abroad, maybe Greece, we get fancy with those structures, design, and material. So my take on those days were that maybe in our regional towns, which is good with our tourism side of the industry, why don't we get excited with those buildings? Because maybe that designer is not been given that leverage or leverage of maybe vernacular architecture, and we are just moving forward towards maybe those materials which are modern but not great in terms of that space oblique region.
Right.
So I think अगर हम लोग उस zone में आते हैं तो we'll make a larger difference and will make a better outcome to design.
Absolutely. I agree with you. I mean, I travel a lot and I could see the connection or disconnection. Let's say, specifically, if you go to Ladakh and Leh city, and then you see how the city is now being developed. Some parts just look like Delhi, Gurgaon,
Exactly.
or Noida, NCR, and some which hold the heritage are just extraordinary to experience. So, yeah.
If by any chance people get to study international architecture, studios practicing in India, they are very fond of Indian material, and they specifically use zero mile architecture, which is nearest possible procurement of material happening from that zone. So maybe you use they'll use kota, terracotta, or some other stones, and roseate is a fine example of it. If you see roseate, it doesn't use any of the modern material coming from abroad. They use all the possible material from India itself.
Wow. Wow. So, is there an issue with awareness,
Yeah.
or is it always a budget issue that,
So budget is not an issue because Indian materials are cheaper.
right?
So budget is not the issue, but question is experiencing the material
Hmm.
and the possibilities of those material is to be understood by people.
And are there ways to experience all of this material while you are studying, while you're in college?
It's so while in college we don't get to have such kind of library in our colleges,
Okay.
and I think that is the main reason that we just get to know about few of them,
Mm.
and then the nearest possible market decides what you will design and what you will use. So that is not the problem. But I think
Right.
with the help of these days with the AI and availability of single sourcing of material, I think we would be able to come up with better answers locally sourced.
Nice. That's incredible. Yeah. Yeah. That's all from my end. Do we have any questions from the people attending here? We can take some questions, but I have one question for Navya. If she can be with us, I know she's multitasking. Just one thing, because we know that Ankur is building something which is physical and we have the knowledge center. Maybe you take this seat. Yeah. And so he's building something which is physical and has a material library, and then bringing everything together. And what I saw you in the past few days while we were planning this, that you're working on the community part, bringing people together, bringing awareness, bringing them to maybe knowledge center, or helping them achieve, or I would say cut off the knowledge gap that we've been speaking of. How critical is this?
So, well, I studied abroad and I came back, and what we were taught architecture over there is very different from what we study here. And when I was collecting everyone, I was talking to the studios and the designers. One thing that came up a lot was how what the students they hire, like 10 years ago and right now what they're doing, they come with the same amount of knowledge. Whatever they were taught 10 years ago, they've been taught right now. So the education has just been similar over the couple of years. And I think it's about time the industry changes and collaborates more. And that was the whole point of BTB. And Knowledge Center is also trying to build that community between the brands and the designers. So it was a very similar idea. And I think that's how.
See it shaping up. Yeah. Just a sec. Check. Yes. How do you think it's going to shape up? I mean, this is the very first
This is
of a
just-
kind,
Yeah.
and we have a great audience here
Yeah.
who's trying to grab it because there's a lot to take home. So, what do you think, year on year, and if
Well,
this keeps working?
I think this is something which people will grow onto because people love community and third spaces are very necessary these days. Everyone's not stuck in their studios anymore. People want to collaborate. Everyone's done with their screen time. So I think mostly people want a common place, which Casey has created, and a common platform, which BTB is working towards. So I think this is going to grow up and people are going to really interact with this and get involved.
Yeah.
What
I
I
just wish it was closer to my home. I could come more often. Though it's completely unrelated, but when I stepped onto that area, I mean, I was mesmerized at what's happening
Of course,
here.
when you enter a space
Yes.
that grand and
Yeah.
where everyone's working with a similar feel and there's so many spaces, it just makes you feel like, okay, you're a
And
part
you
of
get
the
that
industry.
environment.
Yeah, exactly.
So
So
maybe
that
have more
professionalism-
collaboration. So we have couple of questions.
Oh, okay.
Sorry to cut you off. It's just quite a few questions.
Okay.
Let's start with how much of architecture is business and how much is designing? Either of you can answer.
That is a good question for Sir. Because
For Ankur, okay. How much of architecture is business and how much is designing in terms of doing business? Yeah.
So we start our journey by saying that we want to be designer, but end of the day we talk about money.
Absolutely.
I think if we start saving on time and give more time to design, then it's more on design than business. So architecture is all about passion, but I think necessity allows us makes us goes towards business, I would say.
So
I
it's
think that is,
yeah.
sorry.
Yeah, yeah.
That is the whole idea. I started this as like a passion project, as something which I saw missing in the market. And that's what I wanted to create. But however, I've gotten so much advice that this is going to turn into a business soon. And I think that is the whole idea. At some point.
How are you balancing? Because I think many of us here would want to set up their own businesses, and then it becomes more of a creative versus business mindset challenge. I mean, I come from a creative field, so I've experienced that, and it's very difficult. How are you managing?
So I think right now I'm focusing more towards the design part and the
Hmm.
community building part. And I'm pretty sure one day this is going to turn into more of a business thing, but that is not for me. What I prefer is the whole community and building part. And that is how I met Sir as well, actually. We were trying to build the same community, gather the same people. We had the same mission, the same purpose. So that's how the whole thing got shaped, actually.
Right. We have some personal questions also. Who is your closest in office? I don't know who to ask.
I think
Just
Sir-
jumping on. No. And how do you balance personal life and office life? I think you just mentioned the creative part. But is there a difference in personal life and professional life? Are you, I mean, is there a discipline there?
Well,
I
I
don't
think-
have a discipline when it comes to creative work.
Creative
For me,
work
it's
takes
just-
up all your life, I feel like. And that's how you get to be creative because you're so involved in it. If you take it as a business, if you treat it like a business, then it's not creative anymore. It's only creative if you actually invest your time in it. You get so invested that you reach flow state, and that's how creative fields work. It's not a business at all, I feel like.
Yeah. And I think communication is everything when you're communicating with your family or with your clients or with your friends. I mean, that's how humans communicate. That's what we are doing now. How do you communicate to your clients? There's a question here. Is there a certain way to make an idea which is easy to explain it to the client? Because as a designer, you have so much happening in your mind and so much technicalities. Maybe is there a framework? Is there
So I think this is where you become a studio. As a designer, turning yourself into right explanation of project to the your end user client is the journey towards creating a studio. Because what we learn and
Yeah.
how we express and the fastest we express gives luxury of making the client happy and making.
and by having a studio, you mean you have a team
So I'm
and
saying
someone's doing something? Is that the way or?
so your question was that how do you express design?
Yeah, yeah.
So I'm saying that expression of design is the journey where you become a studio as a designer.
Okay. From
When
an
you're
independent
good at
designer.
expressing it
Hmm.
and making that project understandable to the client
Yeah.
is the journey you start towards creating a studio.
And when you're able to communicate successfully, then they want you to take care of everything.
So
Because
That is
they
very true,
understand
yeah.
you and they don't understand.
They treat you as a family member. At some points, clients turn into like family members. You get a call at night, like, "Oh my God, this much work and that tile and this tile." It is very confusing sometimes. That's where personal life and
Yeah.
the business part gets
It
involved.
just fades away.
Yeah.
Right, right. Do we have more questions in the audience? There's a way to ask it through the Instagram, if any. We've covered everything and we'll be walking around. If you want to ask anything personally, please come by and just ask. And thank you so much.
Thank you so
Thank you for
much.
doing
Thank
this.
you.
Very nice of you to do it. First time, I believe went very well. No hesitancy. I was more nervous. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thanks, Navya. Thanks.
Thank you.
All right.
Here is what this conversation quietly argued, that good design was never about design alone. It was about knowing your material well enough to build what you pictured. Ankur said that good design requires good material. Simple, and most of us learned it the slow way over years we did not need to lose. If you are building in this industry or building anything before people believe in it, watch the full conversation. There's a lot in here about starting anyway. And if you are carrying a story like this, you can apply to come on the show at ravneetoberoi.com.